Hey guys, this is Deepthi, and we are today in Agility A to Z. And I have with me Purva and Sumiti. Together, we curate this awesome series of beautiful learning on agile agility and various postulates, assumptions, propositions, whatever is around available there, includes which is frameworks, patterns, and a lot around it. Today we have Dov with us. Yesterday with him, we traveled on a journey around agility, and today we check out this tiny and the very initial framework, Scrum, which helps organizations mostly at team level to enable agility. I'm not going to mention a lot about it. Of course, the expert will talk about it, which is tough. So over to you, Dov.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
great. So now I
yeah,
know I'm an expert. It's very
yeah.
exciting. So welcome to this talk. We have tons of stuff to cover. And because we don't have enough time, I would love to take 1 minute of silence, if you don't mind, where I would invite you to think, what is the burning question that you have for today? What would you like answered in order to have this session worthwhile for you? So there's three things. One is what's the question? Two, how burning it is. And three, how basic do you think it is? And just think about it. I don't want you to write it on the chat yet. And perhaps while you think about it, that's what we did last time. Can you open everyone your videos so we see who's the group that we are part of today, and we can just say hello with our eyes, like sound-wise, perhaps it will be a lot, but just take a look around and see who are the people around you. Perhaps there's someone you know, but for sure, even if you don't know them deeply, after you see them, you will know them better. Hello, Suresh. And I won't force you to leave the camera on all the time, but just to say hello, even if you don't have makeup on or you didn't wake up yet,
Or
just
you
to
don't have
see your
hairs
face
on.
and say hello.
I know.
Or if you, yes, everyone feels so. I personally, I don't think it's a problem, but yes.
Absolutely, it's not a problem. Yeah, that's just my. I'm just pulling your leg, and you're so adorable.
No. Okay, and the rest, can we just see your face for a minute? Okay, I won't force it too much.
Yeah.
But I won't force it too much, but for me, and I also run workshops for teams to work remotely, and it's always a question: how much are you willing to show up? So, like, if you're not willing to show up, there's always an open question there. Okay, so now I hope you had your 1 minute of thinking, and here, just like last time, I prepared a slide for you to answer the question that I hope you just thought of, which is, what question would make this session awesome? And like last time, by the way, if there's someone who wasn't here yesterday, a few words about yesterday. One, we talked about agility, but two, we used the tool that Zoom provides to communicate between us. And this tool is the thing that you can see here. You can choose a notation, and then you can draw on the screen. So I don't know if all of you are able to do it. And for this, I would like to have two people to help me today, because as I said, there's a lot of stuff to cover. One, a timekeeper, whose role it is to remind me every 30 minutes so I have a sense of the time flowing and I can talk freely without being too worried too much about it. Does anyone want to be the timekeeper today?
I can be.
Great. And the second thing is a moderator. And the role of the moderator is to communicate with other people. So for example, if you don't know how to use the tool, you can ask it in the chat and the moderator will answer you, which again keeps me free for other stuff. And also the role of the moderator is to make sure that the last 10 minutes are there free for people to have questions. And I suspect that today you will have more questions than yesterday because we go into more practical stuff. So anyone wants to take the role of the moderator?
Hi, Dov. Well, would you mind to repeat the responsibility of the moderator? Sorry, I missed
Yes.
it. Yeah,
I want you to be present during the session, and people can ask you questions like, how do I use this tool? Or even
Sure.
if they have a question that they want me to answer, they can write it on the chat, and then you will be able to make sure that the question is answered. So you can interrupt me
I
after
think,
the end of the slide and
yeah,
say
I
the
think
question.
I think I can do the second bit, and the first bit with regards to the tool. I'm not sure because I missed this invite yesterday, so I'm not entirely sure what tool are we talking about here.
Okay,
Sorry.
so I'll assign the role. You will do the second part, and for the first part is Deepti. So if you have any technical
Sure.
issues, you can
Yeah.
send a message to Deepti. Is it okay by you, Deepti?
Yeah, I can do that.
Don't worry,
Okay.
Purva will take care of all of this, Suresh. Don't bother. Purva, can you check out all the questions as well as keep the time? I think it's not a big deal. Yeah. So
I'll do.
yeah, don't into that discussion. In fact, I will say you're
We can
already,
start. Yeah.
we should get started. Yeah.
And what we did just now is to assign roles to a team. And we'll talk about roles today a lot. So this is like just a small preview. And now to ask you the question that I did before. So you can write down your question here. And you can, as you say, put two axes. One is how important this question for you. And two, how deep is it in Scrum? So perhaps even how deep are you in Scrum? So do you think that this is an advanced question, a basic one? And just so you know, what you write is anonymous. So don't worry about writing stupid questions. There's no stupid questions, but don't worry about it. And I'm waiting for some questions. So I see where you want to go today. And if you don't manage with the tool, you can write it down. You don't have to draw your question. You can write it down. There's a text tool. Anti-patterns in Scrum. This is good. Okay. Okay. So one is anti-patterns in Scrum. I wanted to make a slide about it. I didn't, but remind me at the end. I must talk about this. And two is how to do it in this new situation where you work completely remote. And so I'll tell you in a few words. In fact, this is my new profession. So currently I'm accompanying teams and teach people of how to do exactly that. Mindset change for transformation. We've talked a lot about this. How to remove stereotypes in organizations. I don't understand the question enough. Can you open your microphone and explain what you mean? And there's a question which is how to, which is too general, I think. Any more questions? How do Scrum Masters do when he was so used to the in-person team And now that we're all in remote sessions, so like it's connected to the remote part, yes. So so you see now, Suresh, it's your role to make sure that I answer all this. So I suggest take a screenshot and make sure that we talk about this.
Yeah, I'm taking it. I'll do that.
Okay. I'll keep the
Purva is
screen.
going to do that, isn't it? That's why I didn't do anything. I was just observing.
Help in effective virtual collaboration and facilitation. Okay. This is another topic. As I said, this is the training that I do, and it takes about 8 to 10 hours of intense training. I can give you some tips. By the way, what I'm doing now are some tips. So what you see is ways to facilitate, but we talk also about collaboration. How to GWAG. What does that mean? I don't know.
Actually, I'm not somehow not able to write on it, but am
Yeah.
I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. My question is, how do you gauge team morale in a remote setup when you're using Scrum?
Yes. So you want to. So perhaps I'll try to go through the slides in a shallow manner and dedicate some time to talk about the remote aspects of working in a team, which I think has less to do with Scrum and more to do in team facilitation. Okay. If you have more questions, put them in the chat, because now we're going into my pyrotechnics. Okay, so I don't know, I hope that you all see my screen. And let's go into the slides. So first, and by the way, you can make, now, usually I like the Hive screen, but in this mode, I suggest you go into the speaker screen so you see my screen bigger, since it contains the slides as well. So a few words about me. As I said yesterday, I'm a meeting facilitator, and I'm interested a lot about the culture of meetings, what makes meetings tick. And I will talk about this today specifically because of how I got there, which is a great story of how to implement Scrum in a team. So this is part of what I'll speak after we cover what Scrum is. As I said, I do workshops about remote teamwork, which are dedicated to team leads, facilitators, managers that deal exactly with this problem that you were talking about. How do we make the team stay a team and collaborate well in these times where first, I don't see the eyes of everyone all the time, and I can't go behind the chair of someone and just look at the screen. And two, where people don't work together, everyone works in their home. So there's tons of tools and mindsets and ideas how to do that. I hope I have time to touch on it at the end of the session, but it has less to do with Scrum and more to do with teamwork. And Scrum, as we will see, and from what I hear, I think you know, is based on teamwork. And the other thing that I do a lot is to kickstart agility, to go into a team with the PO, with the manager, with the a small startup, and just stay there for 1 week or 2 weeks and make it boost, make it sustainable so it remains. And other things that I mentioned yesterday is that a lot of what I do is inspired by a book which was written theoretically 2,500 years ago, which is the Book of Tao. And also, I like to speak. That's why I'm here. So, and now I have to move a slide, and I have to get used to the technology. Okay, so since yesterday you liked so much the Book of Tao, I decided to search a verse that has, for me, some touch to our topic, which is more related to Scrum, yes, and I shrink, which is innovation. So I'd like to read to you these words that I find very that resonate for me, and it's called innovation. Life bears form, and form and form bears thought. Thought and form generate mind, and mind interconnects nature, decaying and generating to adapt each to each other. And part of what we will talk about in Scrum is the adaptation of different parts of the organization to each other to produce this process of decaying and generating, of the decaying of the old that is not relevant anymore and generation of new stuff. New shoots sprout, soft and supple, from fallen trees, shriveled and dry. So agility fosters autonomy and alignment in place of command and control. For autonomy and alignment generate mutual benefit, where command and control oppose it. As a sapless oak rots and splits, hierarchies corrupt and compete. The hard and mighty lie beneath the ground, while the gentle and yielding dance on the breeze above. So these were some words to set the mood, I'd say. And now let's start talking about our topic. So as we understood yesterday what agility is, now the question is, why would someone want to use Scrum? And there's a lot of reasons. I just gave here some reasons at random. I'm sure there's more, and I'm sure you can argue with me about what I wrote. One is about scope management. So it's a way to limit and control the scope of what you deliver. Because what happens a lot in projects is that you ask everything, and at the end you get everything half working 2 years later. And here we have a way to manage the scope, not to limit necessarily, but to get a hold on it. And it's the same for a risk. Instead of having a project done in 2 years, and I've been in projects that take 2 years, and when you deploy it after 2 years, you see that it doesn't supply the need that you thought that it would. It's a way to split the risk and slowly validate stuff and deliver things. So when you deliver something at the end, if there is an end, and we'll talk about that as well, it's less risky. It's also expectation management. So when someone wants from you 100, it's better to deliver one every day for 100 days, because then if you deliver half every day instead of one, then the expectations can be already reduced. They don't have to be clashed at the end of the delivery. And it's about user feedback, and as we saw in the poem, about teamwork, and also about engagement of other people, not only the team, such as stakeholders. So in the old way, or in the waterfall, whatever you want to call it, way of engaging stakeholders, a stakeholder says what she wants, and she comes back at the end of the project to see if she got it, and there's no engagement there. But here you invite her to build the engagement with you and to build a vision together, which is much more powerful. And if you have questions, as I said, put them in the chat and someone will make sure that they're answered. Okay. So now that we know why Scrum, I'll give you a few tips why not Scrum, which is important. So one of the obstacles of applying Scrum is a culture clash, is a sense of a part of the organization that wants to stay, just like in the poem, by the way, to stay in power, to stay in their position. And I'm not negating it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying that as a change agent, you should be aware of this, that if there is someone who doesn't profit from it, someone who wants to stay in the same place, who wants things to move in the same way, you will probably have a problem there. Another one is when there is a stress that goes from the top to the bottom. So working in a place of stress, or working in a place that doesn't value giving teams and people time to learn and to improve, is not a good environment for Scrum. It's bound to be trouble. So even if an organization thinks that they want to apply Scrum, I would advise to reconsider. Sorry about the bad news, but the organization needs to be ready to face what will come up. And another more simple thing, and we talked about this tomorrow, is two spectrums of the simple to chaotic scale. One is if you have projects that are really simple and that are risk-free, that you know exactly what you want and the customer knows exactly what they want and they don't want to re-examine it every time. Or on the other way, projects that are too chaotic, that can change every minute, every second. Scrum is not built for that. Scrum is built for something which is changing but manageable. Okay? And if you decided to do Scrum, this is, I'll make myself larger if you don't mind. How do I get to the cursor? Now I feel better. Okay, so next is, if you decided to do Scrum, the prerequisites are to first, please understand what is agility. Don't implement a framework, don't implement a set of moves without a vision of what is its purpose. And also, what are the risks? Don't implement it, or be aware that when you implement it, you have to give people the right to error, because it's not only a nice thing to do, this is what an agile framework, an agile way of working built on. If I don't have the right to err, I will never improve. Improvement means understanding what went wrong, and this is the fertile ground of new ideas, of new ways of working. So someone says, if you want, if you don't want to change how you function, don't expect to change the result. So if you want to change the result, be ready to change how you function. Another thing is trust, because Scrum is built, and agility is built on teamwork. And teamwork means that I have your back, that sometimes I will leave what I'm doing and I will help you in what you're doing, because what you're doing is now more important to everyone. So it's not my best preference as a person. I would prefer to do that, but you are now stuck, and this means that all the team is stuck. And also organizational flexibility. And by organizational flexibility, I mean that an agile transformation requires a change of roles, requires a change of hierarchy, requires new people to have new roles, which are called Scrum Master, Product Owner, whatever, and requires people who so far were team leads, for example, or managers on a team level to step down. And it's not just a change of a hat, it's also a change of a mindset. And often the people who step down as managers are not the best fit for the new roles that are opening in the organization. And the organization has to know how to flex itself and change its structure in order to accommodate this. And the last thing that I would like from you
Dov,
is
just wanted to inform, 30 minutes are over.
15?
30 minutes are over.
30. Okay, so I'll speed up. Thanks a lot. And the last thing is a commitment to values. So it's not enough that you value something. I would like you to have a heart for it. So I probably should work faster. So we talked about values, agile values. These are the Scrum values. You can read them while I'll tell you what I think about them. And what I think about them is that I don't like them. And the reason I don't like them is that any value that you read here, if I ask any of you, they will say, yes, I have it. So are you courageous? Raise your hand, everyone will. Do you believe in focus? Yes, I will. Respect, of course. Openness, of course. But as we saw yesterday, a good value is a value that challenges you. So courage instead of what? Focus instead of what? What are you willing to give up in order to have this? And this is what's missing here. I won't go more into that. We have a lot of other stuff to cover. Okay, so first thing, now what is Scrum? So we said a lot about it, around it. Scrum, first of all, is a framework. And a framework is a way to handle a complex project or a product, by the way. And I think product is more accurate. To one, produce incremental value. So you don't produce something at the end, you produce something every iteration. We'll talk about that. A way to increase the value while you decrease work in progress. So you learn as a team how to finish and deliver and not leave things open for too long. It's a way to boost learning, and I talked about learning as well. It's related to the right to err, and it encourages emergence. It encourages new ideas that come from the team. And so many teams I saw where the ideas from the team are not encouraged. Here, the team is even empowered to generate its own ideas. There's space for this. And also, it's a framework that builds connection. So connection between us as someone who does something and the market, the people who use it, between the team and stakeholders and in the team itself. And as Dipti said, it works on team level. So Scrum is not something to apply on 1,000 people organization. On 1,000 people organization, you can apply it for teams, and then you have to make some glue between the teams if you need to make them work between them better. So it focuses on work inside the team. But it's also, for me, and this is an analogy that I like better, it's a dance, which revolves around the need. And what do I mean by a dance? It has a choreography, it has dancers, and it has props. So choreography is called in our language ceremonies. Dancers are roles, so different people do different roles, and it has some artifacts. It has some concrete objects that are used, that are produced, and the byproduct of it is a product, is something that functions. And one thing that I like you to consider is that there are no two dancers who dance the same way. And just like that, there are no two teams that dance the same way. And one, you talked about anti-patterns, one of the anti-patterns that appear a lot is managers who try to compare teams, who try to compare the production of one team to the other, while the idea, I don't know if you have kids, the question, which kid do you love more or which is smarter, is a very hard question, which if you have an answer for it, it may be a harmful answer for you, for the integrity of your kids. Okay, so let's start roles. And here, by the way, at the bottom of the screen, you will see something that may help you follow up on this talk. I will talk about 3 roles. and 4 ceremonies and 4 artifacts. Yes, I know ceremonies are replaced by events. I still like the word ceremonies, if you don't mind. Okay, so I will talk about 3 roles and 4 ceremonies and 4 artifacts, and you can count down in the slides to see how fast or slow I'm going. So first of all, the roles. There are only 3 roles in Scrum:
So,
product owner. What?
Deepashri has written in the chat, she's saying that ceremonies are replaced as events in Scrum Guide.
Yes, it's not a question; it's a statement. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And there's one question if you want to take it right away or maybe later.
Which one?
Uh, so this was written by Suresh. So he's asking, how do you make the team turn on their cameras at all times during the events or meeting?
Yeah. So the question I will ask you is, who is Soesh? Ah, okay. So you're the one with the camera on. Okay. So,
Yes, sir.
so the question that I would ask is, for the people below us, how do you make them turn on the cameras? I talk about this a lot in my training. If you want, contact me after this. I can give you some tips. But I think we
Sure.
are deviating from what is Scrum. Okay.
Sure, Doc. Sure. Thank you.
Or if we have time at the end. Okay, so before I talk about roles, I want to take to tell you a small story that I love, a Zen story about ownership, because one thing that bothers me in these roles is that we have a product owner, we have a Scrum Master, and these sound like hierarchical roles. And it means often that people feel that it's not my responsibility. The product vision is not my responsibility. It's the responsibility of the product owner. Or the Scrum implementation is not my responsibility. We have a Scrum Master. So there's a wonderful story about a Zen master who knew everything. And there's a student who really was driven crazy by this. So one time when he was in the forest, he caught a butterfly, as you see here, and he held it in his arms. And he said, "I will go and ask the Scrum, the sorry, the Scrum, the master, what do I have in my hand? For sure, he will not know." So he comes and he says, "Master, can you tell me what I have in my hand?" And the master, without even looking at his hands, he looks in his eyes and says, "You have a monarch butterfly." And the student is totally amazed. But now he says, "I have an idea. I will ask him, is it alive or dead?" And if he says he's dead, I will open my eyes and release it. But if he says alive, I will crush it and show him that he's dead. And he asks, "Is it alive or dead?" And the master again looks in his eyes and says, "This is in your hands." Okay. What I want to say by this, the word responsibility is a wonderful word, because it has two parts: response and ability. So for me, responsibility is the ability to respond. And the ability to respond means that if you can do something about it, it is your responsibility. So what I tell teams is, even if you have a Scrum Master, if you can do something about the process, if you can do something about the team dynamic, it is your responsibility. It is not only the responsibility of the Scrum Master, it's 100% his or hers, and it's 100% yours. And responsibility can be shared wonderfully. Anyone who can do something about it has the responsibility. And it's the same about product vision. So this was a short story that I had to say, to share with you before we continue. Okay, and now let's talk about the first role. And the first role is a team member, the most important role. So the team, as I explain it, owns the product on the how level. It owns how it is implemented. It owns the technology. It owns also some details that are perhaps too detailed for the product owner to take. And it works in an independent way. And one thing which I mentioned before, it's self-managed. So if it's self-managed, where does someone who was the team manager find themselves now? And if they find themselves still in the organization, how does the organization handle this? Because the more your parent is there to watch you, the less you can be independent, and independence is important for a team. So this is the first role, and if you notice, all of the team, everyone in the team has the same role. They are team members, so no matter what's my specialty, if it's backend or fog or whatever, or graphical designer or whoever, my first role is to help the team in its team mission as much as I can. Second role is the product owner. And the product owner doesn't own the product as much as they own the product vision. It owns the direction where the product goes. It owns the connection with customers and with the market and with competition. And it drives, if you want, sometimes I say a team is a car and the product owner drives it. Okay, so it's a very smart, self-maintaining and ever-improving car, and the product owner decides where it goes. The product owner molds the product to be the perfect fit for the needs, which are not always, by the way, the things that the customer wants, for the needs of the customer, for the needs of the market. And the third role, which I think most of you heard of, is the Scrum Master. So if the product owner owns the product, a vision, and the product and the team holds the product physically, the Scrum Master owns nothing of this sort. What the Scrum Master owns is the process, is the spirit, is the connection between what is going on in the team, and if you want, agility, everything that we talked about yesterday, to encourage the team to not lose sight of what agility is, to challenge them when needed, to support them where needed. And by the way, the one thing that I like is to compare the role of the Scrum Master to the role of a parent. Why? Because the role of the parent changes during the life of the child. So a parent of a baby doesn't have the same role as a parent of a 20-year-old. So it depends on the maturity of your kids, your necessity changes, and also your function changes. Sometimes you will encourage someone to take risks here, but protect them from taking risks there depends on their maturity and how much you assess the danger. So these are the three roles. And then what roles are missing? So we didn't talk about project management. We didn't talk about QA support. And by the way, as you see, we didn't talk about agile coach, which I find very offensive, right? So why is that? One, sometimes they're not needed, and two, even if they're not needed, they're not part of this dance. So if we said that Scrum is a dance, there's a lot of people who support the dance. There's a choreographer, and sometimes there's no choreographer, and there's someone who takes care of the buying the tickets or like the selling of the event, and sometimes no. There's a lot of roles that might be useful. So no project manager, because it's a role that I think starts to be obsolete in the agile world. There's no QA support because they diffuse into the team, because they are, a QA is now a team member and support is now team member. And a big part of the role is to help the team do the QA, and the developers help the team do the development. And there's no agile coach because it's an external role. So like, for example, what I do often, I accompany teams, and when they're mature enough, I leave them. I'm not part of what they need. I'm part of what they need to be mature enough. So as I say, it's not that all these roles are not there, but for sure they're not part of this dance that I described. And now let's talk about ceremonies. And for this, I would love to go into to share my screen, because I want to draw, if you don't mind. think the explanation will be more interesting. Okay, so how do I share my screen? Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is the dance. So now I'm going to describe to you the dance. Do you all see the screen, by the way?
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
Yes. Great. Okay. So in fact, a sprint is I would say the zero out of the 4 ceremony. It's the most basic one, which isn't even mentioned, which is a sprint is a mini project. So it's a project, but it's not a project that takes 2 years. It's a project that usually takes 2 weeks, and it goes like this. Okay, so from side to side, start somewhere, end somewhere. Okay, now the first ceremony is something that I think you know from any project. Any project starts with planning. Okay, so planning means what do we want to do? Oh, do you see the screen? Okay.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so planning means what do we want to do? And any project ends with a successful project ends with
Retrospective. I mean, demo.
Then
with the delivery.
Increment. Delivery, yeah. PI.
Okay, so any project you do, if it's successful, ends with handing off what you delivered, which hopefully is working. Okay, so at the end you deliver. Okay, and this is the basic project, and the power of Scrum, the first power of Scrum, is that this happens not every year or 2 years or half a year or 6 months, but happens every usually 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, the team delivers something which is working, not something that's half working, something that can be deployed now. And this something that can be deployed can be a basis of, one, do we continue or not? Because it's working, right? So perhaps we want to improve it, perhaps not. And two, if we want to continue, in which direction? Because in fact, I thought that we want to go this way, but now that I see your product, I think that it should be improved that way. Or I can show it now to users and get their feedback. So this is a sprint, and it starts by planning and ends with a demo only almost. There are 2 more ceremonies that I want to show you that are specific to Scrum. So I'll change the color. One is that every day we have a meeting between us, the team members, including the Scrum Master, why not, but also the product owner, to see what happened since yesterday. What did we do since yesterday? What are we planning to do tomorrow? Are we on time for this mini delivery of 2 weeks, or do we have any problems there? And this is called, I have to get out of the way all of the windows. Yes, okay. So this is called the daily Scrum. And another one, so I lied a little bit when I said that we finish by a demo. In fact, we finish by something else. We finish by a retro. And a retro is a meeting which is dedicated not to improving of the product, which is the delivery, but improvement of how we work, of our process. So it's a retrospective where the team meets together and asks itself, how do we improve our working together? Okay, and I'm going to go into all of these in details now. I don't know how much details, because I don't think that we're on time.
we got 10 minutes left before 30.
Okay, so this is,
So
I'll
40
run
minutes are
really.
left in total.
Okay, So this is how it looks. And in fact, I left out two things, which is a project vision. Before we even start doing this, what do we want to deliver? What is our high vision? And also release planning, more or less. Okay, so we will deliver increments, but this is really important to get out of the I don't know, to produce before Christmas, because in Christmas we will have sales, and this is an important target for this, for example. And if not, this is the exact cycle, only the line that I described. Now we put a circle around it. Why? Because we repeat it over and over. We have one sprint and then another one and another one. And if you see, there's two feedback loops here. There's the feedback loop of the sprint and there's the feedback loop of the daily Scrum. Okay, next. Yes. Okay. Now let's talk about artifacts, and I'll start to go faster. So one artifact we have is a product backlog. A product backlog is a list of what needs to be done. Only two things that are important. One, what needs to be done is wrote in a very simple and client-centric ways. So like here is an example of a user story that I worked on, and I hope I'll have time to talk about. As an employee, in order to be motivated, I want to know what my peers think about me, how they value me. Okay, so it's centered around someone who wants something, and why do they want that? This is one attribute of a product backlog, which is different than a spec. And the other one, which is really important, and you see on the other side, is that a spec, a product backlog is prioritized. There are no two things which have the same priority. Always you do first, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. And this is a very powerful one, especially if you have someone who says everything is important. Yes, everything is important, but would you rather to have all of these in 2 years, or to have all of these in 2 years, but the first one in a week? And now for the first ceremony, the first ceremony is planning, which is the ceremony where the product owner now brings the product backlog, and the team understands what the user needs, connects to it, and then it plans what can be done during one sprint. So a story can be too big, it can be too vague, and this is called the definition of ready, where I didn't put this here. So we need some definition of when is a story ready to be implemented, but also what's the definition of done? How do we exit the story out of the team so it doesn't enter again? So there's no things to do yet again. And so the team takes the stories into the product, so into the sprint. They say, in this sprint, we'll do A, B, and C. And they create a sprint backlog, which is based on the stories that they chosen, and they break them down sometimes into tasks. This is an example of the definition of done. We won't go there. And this is an example of a sprint backlog. So a sprint backlog has user stories. And for each user story, there's a breaking down into tasks. And as you see, there's a few columns here: in progress, complete, closed, and perhaps also there should be a to-do here. So now for the second ceremony, every day the team has a daily meeting, a daily scrum, a daily stand-up if you want, because in the real world, people stand up so they don't talk too much. And everyone moves their task, or the task that they work on from yesterday to today, to I completed this. Now someone has to test it, and they see on the board in a visual way. And by the way, visual management is an important part of working in an agile way. They see on the board what is the progress of the mini project that they committed to, which is called a sprint. The third ceremony is not that surprising, except for the fact that it happens every 2 weeks. And at the end of the mini project, you show something that works, and you show it to people who care, and especially you show it to get their feedback. So they tell you, here the font is not good enough, or this doesn't seem strong enough, or I don't like the color. And you gain their involvement, and also you gain an improvement in the product, because to change the font in 1,000 screens is hard, but to change the font after you did 2 screens is easy, and now it applies to all of your projects. And the fourth one, which is the most interesting, and I'll talk about it the less because it changes every time, is the retrospective, which is an internal meeting where the team exchanges in an open manner on what happened during the sprint, what can we learn, what can we improve, what can we start doing differently, what do we want to stop doing. And it also has a chance to vent, I think. It also has a chance to communicate on a different level with each other. And this is my favorite meeting, especially because it's different and it's open. Okay, so now for the last artifact. The last artifact is an important one that we forget. And it is the most important one because this is the artifact that gives us the money to survive, and it is a working product increment. So every time that we finish a sprint, we deliver something that suits the users, the customers much better, hopefully. Okay, there's a lot of other ceremonies or other versions of this. So there's sometimes you talk about refinement, which is important, and there's other artifacts like burn down, burn up. Not today. A few last words before I go to another part is one. Scrum is not software centric, so I would love to tell you the story of the best Scrum implementation that I had, which was with HR, and I'll say this in just a few minutes. And also, as Deepti said, it's not the only way. Scrum is a dance, and there's other forms of dances. Okay, it's the most popular one, and I think the advantage of it and its popularity is because they are simple, because the moves are simple, because there's not a lot of components. And one risk that I talked about, but I will repeat it because it's important, beware that it exposes failure fast. So what they say that when you implement agility and Scrum, in specifically Scrum, it doesn't fix anything. It just shows you in the beginning much clearer what doesn't work. And if your organization doesn't like that, you should be really careful and prepare them for this. Because before you fix something, you have to understand that it's broken. So that's what Scrum, but what's important for me is that before we continue, we have to understand if what we talked about suits what we discussed yesterday. What I mean is, Scrum is there to apply agility. This is the definition of agility. Do we understand how it applies it? So first one, individuals and interaction over processes and tools. Okay, you think it applies this? You can write in the chat.
So Dov, we are left with half an hour.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. So for me, the application of this is the strongest one because Scrum is based on the empowering the individual people, and it doesn't tell you what tools to use. So I know different teams that use Jira or Post-its or whatever, and it doesn't even have to be a visual tool, by the way. What do you do with the team of blind people? Don't insist on visual tools. Insist on getting the value that you can get out of the process. Another one is working, and I have a different version here, working solution over documentation. And in the process that I described, you deliver a working product really fast. And experience shows that when people get a working product fast and every week, they're much less in need of a documentation. Customer collaboration for sure, because now there's someone who is responsible for communicating with the customer and bringing the vision to the team. And the other one, the last one, is responding to feedback or change over following a plan. And as you saw today, I hope, when you start a product, you don't have a complete vision of what you want to deliver and when. And this vision changes all the time, becomes clearer, but also changes direction according to the feedback that you get. So that's the connection. And if you ever implement Scrum, I invite you, for everything you do, to ask yourself, does this connect to the manifest? Why am I doing stand-up, in fact? What is the purpose of this? And if stand-up doesn't work, read this manifest again and see, does it contribute to anything here? And if not, change it. Okay, so now perhaps I will take 10 minutes to describe my experience working with an HR group. But before that, I would love to have any questions that you have. So I remember there were a lot in the beginning. Can you ask something? Hmm?
So we don't have, yeah.
Sorry, go
What?
on, Purva.
Yeah, I was just telling there's no question in the chat, so you can ask verbally.
Yeah, but I remember there were questions in the beginning.
Yeah. So one of the question was, how do you make the team turn on? Okay, that's separate. I think that's mine. Ignore mine. One of the other question was mindset change for transformation.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate, I had couple of questions. I remember them. One was regarding anti-patterns in Scrum.
Yeah. So I'll take it. I'll just start reading out the question,
Okay,
so
sure.
he'll answer.
Okay.
So the first question is, what do Scrum Master do when he was so used to in person team, and now that we are all in remote session?
So it's a complicated one. First of all, understand what's your role. Currently, there is this tool that we use now to talk, which for me works very well. Only if you were used to impose your communication on the team, perhaps now you have to rebuild it. And there's a lot of tools to rebuild it. So you know, there's icebreakers, and there's a lot of exercises to do. But I think the best one is to rebuild the team. So there are tools to rebuild a team. You can use personal maps, you can use a team canvas, you can use a lot of tools to tell the team, listen, the situation totally changed. Now we're a new team. Let's have a 2-hour meeting where we redefine how are we working, what is our purpose, what is the role of everyone, what are the rules, by the way. So like, for example, you said, do we turn on the cameras or not? And explain in this meeting your need to turn the camera if you have one. And perhaps people will tell you the difficulty, and you will do some give and take there. But for sure, what you shouldn't do is treat it as business as usual. Like, you should address the fact that you are now working in a totally different environment. And by the way, the recommendation is to do a team canvas, or like to build the team, rebuild the team every time there is a major change. So either someone important left the team or someone joined the team, redo this and revisit your team definitions, revisit your team rules, but also make them explicit. So I'm doing a big training about this. I can't give you everything. It's not the topic today. Another thing to do is to teach people to work out loud, to make people understand that what you do in your private time, like in your private space, no one sees unless you share it, and have ways to share it, to create common spaces for people to work, to create common tools for people to work. In fact, it's a new project of building your team. So that's my advice.
There's one more question which is similar. So this is how to start Scrum with a new team in complete remote setup like these days.
It's exactly the same. So it's
Yeah.
in fact, I would say treat the team that you have to rebuild like it's a new team, right? Only I think when you start a totally new team, you have the privilege of starting in a new language. So even I don't know if it's okay to say this or not, but when you hire someone, you accept them as a function of how well is this communication done, right? So if you have a meeting with someone and they refuse to turn on the camera, probably you will remove some of the points that you give them. So you select your team as function of the new needs that changed. But other than this, it's a totally new one. And the best advice is treat it seriously. But like for the details, we can talk about details. But as a mindset, it's not a light-hearted task. It's the main task that you have now as a facilitator, as a Scrum Master.
Okay. So the next question is anti-pattern in Scrum.
Okay, so there were two anti-patterns that I wanted to talk about. I think I mentioned some when I talked before about how management doesn't want you to change, but the process wants you to change at the same time, right? But it does two things that I wanted to mention. One is called a Scrum Bat, and one is called Zombie Scrum. So Scrum Bat, the symptoms of Scrum Bat is this. We are doing Scrum, but we're not doing stand-ups. We're doing Scrum, but the product owner is not really a product owner, is a project manager. We're doing Scrum, but we don't have time for retrospectives. Okay. We're doing Scrum, but the spec is already written until the end of the year. So anything that says we're doing Scrum, but is a big anti-pattern because, as I said, Scrum touches in the pain points. And if you avoid your pain points, you probably won't change them. So when I said that Scrum brings out the problems, the buts are the problems. The buts are a big focus into what is the problem, the real problem in your team. The other one, yes?
So, sorry to interrupt you, Dave. I was reading an article the other day, and someone wrote like Scrum is like your mother-in-law. She tells you what the problems are, but she doesn't help you. She doesn't fixes them. So I just recollected this example, and I thought I'll share it with you.
So I don't have a mother-in-law, but I believe you.
Yeah, I got a mother-in-law. And my wife's got a mother-in-law as well. So I believe in it.
Okay.
Sorry,
And
sorry for interrupting.
yeah, the other anti-pattern is zombie Scrum. And zombie Scrum has to do with going through the motions without understanding the need. Okay, so we do stand up, but we don't understand why it's needed. We treat it as a meeting. So we must do this, so we do this, and everyone says, I did this, I did that, and no one listens. Because in the process, I didn't say that everyone must listen. I said everyone must talk, so why listen? Okay, doing a retrospective where all you do is complain about the others and not about what I want to do, right? There's a lot of retrospective that I was where everyone complains about HR and the management and other teams, and no one takes the responsibility to say responsibility. Remember, to say what can we do to improve in the next sprint. So there's a lot of anything where you do Scrum and you don't understand why you're not connected, as I said, to everything we spoke about yesterday, is a zombie Scrum. So going through the motions without any spirit, if you want. So these are the big two, very high level anti-patterns. Any more questions?
Yeah, we have some more. So one is how to remove stereotypes in organizations.
How to remove stereotypes in organizations. It's not clear enough a question. So whoever wrote the question, can you explain, please? You can take responsibility for what you wrote, right?
Or anyone, maybe then we can go ahead with another question.
Or if not, yeah, let's go to another one.
Yeah. So another one is mindset change for transformation. So this is it. I mean, this is also not very clear.
Yeah, so I don't know where's the question mark, but like I think I talked about this a lot. I think that as an organization, you should dedicate a lot of bandwidth to mindset change. You should, I don't like the word should, but I would advise you strongly to take your managers through a training that will make them understand what's going to happen, even if you don't have to go deep into what's going to happen on a shallow way, just like we talked today. You should understand what will happen when there is a transformation, or you will feel at risk, to help you find your new way as an enabler. And by the way, managers are still needed. Only the role of management changes drastically. And if you don't understand as a manager that you have a role and the role is changing and you have to prepare for it, then you will be a blocker in the way. So this is one. I think it's more important than the mindset in the team. What I see usually, at least with the team I work with, is that the mindset changes very quickly because Scrum addresses the problems. Only they're blocked by the people above. So yes, I don't know what was the question, but that's probably the answer. Okay. One last question, and then I'll go to the other part I wanted to talk about.
Sorry. So last question is how to gauge team morale. I think this is a statement that someone has written.
Wow. So first of all, asking the question is already half the job. So if you concern yourself with this, you did a big step. And because you also admitted that the team morale has to be addressed. There's tons of tools, and again, I'm doing a training about this. I can give you a taste. One is in meetings like this. So in meetings like this, you can do icebreakers. You can be playful. Another one is to I think redefining the team, doing a team canvas, defining the team again, and putting this in place helps the team morale. I think that the team morale, if it's low, it probably didn't start when the team works remotely. it probably was there to some extent before. And by the way, I think all of the things that are that have the title remotely, so how to manage meetings remotely, how to do interviews remotely, all of this starts by how to do meetings or how to do interviews. The remote part is secondary there. So how do you boost team morale in general? And like thinking about it out loud, I think the word responsibility is a strong one. It is not only your responsibility, it's the ability of everyone to change it. And you as a Scrum Master, as a facilitator, you have the power to create a glue in the team. You have the power. For example, I'll give you one example. One thing that's missing today that was there before is to have to meet in the coffee corner, to meet in the corridor. And this is something that's missing now. Why not put it in place again? Why not say, this week I want everyone to just schedule a 5-minute coffee break with someone in the team, not with me. Just have a one-on-one with someone and just have coffee together and talk about whatever you want and see how it helps. Another one is to teach people games. Like you remember what we played last time, right? To have a ball during a meeting and to say, Kurva, catch the ball, okay? And you catch it and you throw it to someone else with everyone with the microphone on. It energizes the team. It makes the team connect. It also makes people, by the way, to look in each other's eyes. Another thing which I think is important, and we see the example here compared to yesterday, by the way, most people don't have their videos on. If you turn your video on, it's a small discomfort for you and it adds to a big comfort of the whole team. And it's just like, you know, with the COVID situation, you put a mask on yourself to protect the others. Here, you put yourself in discomfort to help the team. You can't ask the team to boost your morale if you don't play part of the game. And this is a talk that I would suggest that you have with the team. Like acknowledge to talk to them. Why don't you turn your video on, for example? Okay, whatever behavior you want them to change, talk to them openly. That's what that's in a like really in a very yes. So about bandwidth issue, what I ask usually the people to do is to open the camera just in the beginning, just to show your face. And by the way, I think that your company should help people with a stronger bandwidth. Like it's part now, it's a working tool. If they're forced to work from home, you want as a company to pay them to be more productive. And if they need a tool, by the way, also if they need a chair, if they need something that will make them be more productive, it's a real conversation to have. So this is, let's see if I have time to talk about what I wanted. I have 12
We
minutes.
are, yeah, 11 minutes, and that was a really helpful answer.
Okay, so now I want to talk to you about my experience. Just for this, I want to change the color of the screen. Okay, good. This one. Okay, so as I said, I was working with HR, and I want to share with you a story of how working with HR in an iterative way, which was, in fact, it's the most Scrum by the book that I ever did, and it was with a team that was not IT. So I thought it's an interesting story. We got a mission, and our mission was happy employees and self-learning organization, which is a beautiful mission because it's so short that you, one, understand it, and two, can put a lot of things into it. And the first thing I did, I said, I can't do this mission. I can't deliver this. What I can deliver for you are people who will deliver this. And I got volunteers from HR to form a team that functioned as a Scrum team. So a Scrum team, we already know, needs a product owner and a Scrum master. No one agreed to be the Scrum masters because they're all busy. So I was the Scrum master, and there was an owner, and the product owner was someone who knows everyone, knows the management and knows the employees, and she agreed to manage the priorities and the vision of the team. And every 2 weeks, like clockwork, we delivered something. How did we deliver? First of all, she had a backlog, which was a bit vague. Only before every planning, we would groom her and me and whoever wanted in the team. We would go through the backlog and see what concrete things that are interesting we can do next sprint, where the criteria was something that we can do in a sprint and something that we can test. So doing something is not enough. You want to do something and then see that it has an impact. And the one example that I wanted to share with you is a project that I'm involved in today, and you saw part of it. Let me just find the box. Yes, this one. So our challenge was to improve meeting culture in the organization. And we didn't know how to do it, except that one of the people in HR had some paper on his desk where there were like, I don't know what, the 10 commandments of a good meeting. Okay? So we said, why not print it and put it in meeting rooms? And what I said is, why not? Only not in all meeting rooms. Let's put it only in 5. And your job during these 2 weeks is to sit outside the meeting rooms and ask people, did it help you? Talk with your users. And in the first iteration, did you see it? No. Okay, so we printed it in color and we put it on the wall. Did you see it? Yes. Did you read it? No. Why? Because it's in English and we're in Thailand, so we don't read English unless we have to. Okay, so we printed it in English and in Thai, and now third iteration already. Did you read it? Yes. Did it help you? No, because there's too much text. Okay, so we deleted it. We left only 3 things, and we make it bigger, and we put it on the desk. And every iteration, we did something more until we got to a reasonable, interesting iteration, where people started to say, yeah, it helps, it's nice. Only after about a month, there was a decline. And what we realized when we talked to people is because they read it already, they don't read it again. And wouldn't it be nice to have a sign, like a page that changes all the time, that changes color, that invites you to reread it because you realize that what you read before you don't read again. And so we did that as well. So we did a few signs, and every week someone had to move between all the meeting rooms and change the signs between the meeting rooms. And that was fun. And what happened to this is that when I left the organization, I realized that this is a product that can be interesting. And I created something called the Meeting Spicer. I don't know if you heard about it or not. The Meeting Spicer is a product that does exactly this. And it contains a set of cards that are, I'll give you a sample here that I prepared for this meeting, a set of cards that have a way to start a meeting, okay? So let's say, I don't know what, every meeting, someone picks a random card. I don't know, let's say this one. And now you can start your meeting by asking everyone to look around and think silently for 20 seconds. You can do it now, by the way. In my opinion, do all participants agree on the meeting's goal and are willing and able to contribute? And am I? Okay, so this is an example of a way to start a meeting with some reflection, with some challenge, if you want an icebreaker, but it's a mindful icebreaker. It's not to dance, but it's to think about the context of what we're going to do. And there's a lot of cards like this. And also, I'll show you another one. We have role cards like this one, for example, which you give to people in the beginning of the meeting. Who's the meeting owner today? It's an interesting question to ask. And on the back, you have a definition of what's a meeting owner. And the last part is just as we have ways to open a meeting, we have a way to close the meeting. For example, yeah, this one, which we can use today. Okay, read this card and then answer aloud. What's the exact time? Did we end on the planned time? And if not, what was the difference? And by the way, ask the team, is it important? So this is a set of cards to facilitate meetings in a mindful way, if you want, to help the team hack their own meeting culture. And this is an example of an evolutionary development of a product, which started by a team. Now it's by another team because it's me and my partner. But what you see here is the fifth version of what I did with my partner already. And every time we get feedback and we change, and by the way, we also change according to a situation. So now there was a situation which was, I guess all of you heard about it, the COVID thing, right? Which forced people to do meetings like this. So we created this version, which is dedicated for remote meetings. We have only cards. Before we had a card like everyone get up and sit near the person you know the least. Not relevant today. Okay, so we groomed all of the cards that are relevant for remote meeting, but also we did these cards so they're suited for a video. Why? Because as you saw, I read it while you saw it because it's printed in both sides. And this is an example of innovation. This is an example of a new need that arises out of a new situation. So this is, I wanted to show you how a product that is developed in an agile way looks, and also how does a team do it, because until I got into the cards, all of this process was a teamwork, was by people experimenting, proposing, changing the product, and mainly measuring the impact. So this
is really great, Dov, and we would definitely would like to understand more about this card. I will definitely reach out to you for this one. Uh, while we are ending the session, there are just 2 minutes left for session to end. Before that, before everyone starts leaving, I am posting a link for Mentimeter. If you guys can start giving your feedback, I will be sharing my screen as well so that you guys can see it. Okay, just give me a moment. Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
not yet, but it will come.
It's visible now.
Yeah. So once everyone is done with the first question, please do let me know. I will then refresh the slide and move to the second one. We have around 15 people, and right now I have 7 feedbacks. Okay. I'll give a couple of more seconds for the slide, and then probably move to the next one. Yeah. My screen froze. Just give me a second. Yeah, it's gone. Let me know if you guys are able to view the next question. Not on my screen, but on the link which I have shared.
No.
Oh, not yet.
Same question.
Same question. Just give me a minute. Somehow my screen has frozen. Just give me a second. Purva, can you share the link which I had shared with you earlier in the chat?
You want me to share the screen?
Yeah, if you can with
Yeah,
this
I
link.
can.
Yeah, thank you.
So, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Just share this link as well. There was one link which I had shared privately with you. Just share that link with everyone. They should be able to see the screen.
Okay, fine.
Here's the one. Wait a sec. There's another link which I have shared with each one of you. This is for the second question.
It's the same link.
We got the same questions.
Yeah, it's the same, Sumati.
Okay, so what you guys can do probably in the section chat section only, if you can just mention what all other sessions you would like to uh, have in coming A2Z sessions, so that we can pick those ones and have those kind of sessions with you.
And also, by the way, for
Yeah,
me,
topics.
if you can write, what would you like me to do differently in next time I do this talk?
Sure.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Dov. It was a really nice session. We could learn a lot.
And yeah, I mean, I had a completely different perspective altogether. I have done multiple sessions in Scrum, but I have done CSM, I have done PSM, but yeah, there were a few perspectives, Dov, that were new to me this time. And that's the reason I attend these kind of sessions. So yeah, thanks all of you who have arranged this one. Thank you.
That's great. Such
Probably.
as, just out of curiosity, when you say new perspectives, what do you mean?
Nah, Dov, like I mentioned it yesterday, like the usage of Ganesha, talking about, the Zen master. You have been talking about like Su, the new book that you referred to, which has so many poems in them, but they're pretty deep when you try and read them and try to correlate it with agility. I would also like to mention about today, like when you gave an example of that butterfly and the Zen master, it's how you respond, it's in your hand. So that I resonated with that. So that was also very interesting perspective. And also, I think one more thing, and also about the anti-patterns that you answered my question. So I've taken those notes, and I think these are a few things that were my takeaway. So yeah.
Great, thanks a lot. Anyone
Yeah,
else?
yeah, and one more thing, which the card thing which you were explaining at the end, it was also very new, and it was a nice way whenever we are talking remotely over Zoom call. So it is really a nice way to interact with the other people.
So yeah, the cards you can find them in
Yeah, I already started Googling.
Yeah, and it's a bit pricey. It's showing me 1 lakh something.
No, I think for me,
INR.
for me, it's showing like 13 pounds something, which means around 1,000 INR.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
should
it's
also,
definitely.
yeah, you should provide some discount coupons here.
Yeah, suddenly the price went to 13,265, which
Yeah,
means
yeah, that's what I said.
13 lakh rupees.
Yes, that's what I said. It's showing me
I think
13 lakh
probably,
rupees.
yeah, I think probably there's a glitch on the website. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
definitely
So
the.
if you want to contact me privately, I'm sure there's no reason that price will be the blocker.
We will
Yeah,
provide
Yeah,
Haresh's
yeah.
mail ID in the mail, which will come following this session, which has recordings as well as his presentation slides. And there we will also provide you his mail ID so you can reach out to him.
And by the
sure.
way,
Absolutely.
if I can push my own stuff, I'm currently, as I said, doing a training for a remote facilitation, and I'm doing it with another Indian company. If you're interested in my next session, contact me, and
We'll
again,
provide, yeah.
just like for this one, I think it's important enough that price will not be a blocker for this. It's really, I find that it's important to again, I'll talk in the same language, to increase harmony in the world. It's important to remove the friction inside the team, or as you said, like the sadness and the bad emotions and the lack of energy. So if you're interested, contact me. And if you're not interested, you
Sure.
can contact me as well by the.
Sure, Dov. I have already sent you a LinkedIn request. I think you have already accepted. So yeah, let's stay connected.
All right, then this sums our awesome 2 days learning cycle with Dov. And if people have any question, we will provide his LinkedIn as well as mail ID contact, so you all can write to him. And yeah, we'll provide you videos and we'll provide you the presentation. Thank you so much. Thanks, Dov. And thanks
Thank
everyone
you.
for joining. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks for organizing this.
Do you want to stay and talk a little bit, Ipti?
Sure, I'll do. You all can have a good
Drop out.
rest of the weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dov.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks, Joe.